Hey everyone, welcome to a new video. So today we're going to take a trip into Korean solo queue to see what they've got for us since the new patch 9.6 has dropped. I'm actually going to be playing some of these builds on the stream, so I'll throw a link down below if you fancy watching. But it's going to be stuff like Ezreal, who had this double tier build removed so you can't get Archangels anymore since the patch. That leaves us with kind of a weird build, right? We can grab a Blade third, but what's going to be after that? So instead, sometimes Korea have started to get Luden's third item and then a Gunblade. It's basically the same idea as Archangels anyway, turning Ezreal AP after his first few items, and that is kind of what is giving his W the stupid amount of burst damage. You can also throw in things like Zhonya's, Death Cap, or you can go for a normal AD build with the Last Whisper and stuff, and then throw in a bit of AP late game if you want to. Both AD and the AP hybrid builds work at the moment, but this is just kind of a little trend that I noticed after somebody came into my stream and mentioned it, but I'm really sorry, I can't remember who it was. Either way, they said, what about Luden's? And it turns out after some digging that Korea have started to do it just a little bit. So that was a warm-up, like the first sip of tea to check that it's okay before you take the tea bag out, but now we're taking it out and we're ready to get started. Misfortune has a really weird build at the moment that has popped up over the last few patches, but really come through in 9.6 as one of the best AD carries you can play. The keystone is Press the Attack, which is already very weird. It has no normal synergy with Misfortune at all, but then some even go Overheal, some go Presence of Mind sometimes too. It is strange, but not if you go for a Blade the Ring King as your first item. So what's the deal? Why aren't we building lethality like normal? Well, you actually trade really well with this, especially when you have your W active. You chunk people out with the percentage damage. You kite better as well with the speed up. It gives you some good AD and some healing on it as well. The thing is, with Press the Attack, it means that your auto attacks are actually doing some serious damage as well as your abilities. Misfortune is normally just about our ultimate really, and maybe a Q bounce here and there, but this moves completely away from that. You're not just going to be using your ultimate anymore. It still will do a ton of damage, but your auto attacks will actually back it up. After your blade, you are going to stack lethality and cleaver and stuff like that, but remember the blade percentage damage is physical, so all of that arm penetration that you're building increases your percentage damage at the same time. If you play below plat right now, gold, plat, whatever, silver, bronze, iron, 100% give this a go because it's actually insanely good. It is probably one of the strongest AD builds in the game at the moment, and I know how weird that sounds, but it's actually really strong. That one kind of came out of nowhere, but Hecarim did get a buff this patch. Well, a bug fix actually. Your Q now actually ramps up damage like it was supposed to. Everyone thought that it would be a really good jungle buff, but actually at high-low in career, people were already playing him as a top laner since the new Conqueror came in. Now though, a lot more people are playing him top, but he's actually got the highest win rate up there at the moment. He really plays around the early game now in trading. His early game win rate is ridiculously high. At least over there, I mean, it's kind of like if the game ends before 20 minutes, he wins over 60% of the time, and that shows you just how hard he can snowball given the chance. His damage is amazing. He can run people down. His Q allows him to fight better now after the bug fix, but also push the wave too. With Conqueror, your W and your Q are going to stack that up really fast, so it activates really quickly, and you get your AD, you get your bonus true damage, and the healing. That healing is added to your W healing you have anyway, plus you bring Ignite and TP, so the best of both worlds, where you can get back to the lane, kind of control it, and move around the map, but you can also win your lane harder. It's actually insane how good of a pick this is. It's definitely S tier at the moment, like a top tier top laner, and definitely underplayed, so jump on this and try it while you still can. Number 2 in the top lane, at least in win rate, is Kayle now after these changes, and she did get some base stat nerfs, but her W and her E were made smoother to use. They don't have a delay on them anymore, and instead they follow her normal auto attack timer, and what that meant was she actually became even stronger than before, and she was already really good. Kayle is trash in lane, and when you have a bad player playing Kayle, that is amplified and it looks even worse. But to show her strength, if you can make it to 25 minutes, that's probably like maybe 2 items, she becomes the second best top laner in the game and only increases in win rate over the rest of the game as well. In Korea, if you get to 40 minutes, Kayle wins 70% of the time, and I've never ever seen a stat get that high before. This is like the new breed of Cassidy. The build is Kleptomancy now as well, which helps you get to your items just a little bit quicker. Free boots to help your lane phase, biscuits to help your lane phase, and tonic to help your lane phase. You also got resolve secondary most of the time, so you got bone plating to help your lane phase, and overgrowth to give you a bit more health so you don't die. Item wise, you're looking at 2 very different builds currently. So Nash's Tooth into Rage Blade is the most common at the moment. It's probably the most well-rounded, it's the easiest to use as well, and that goes into a Rylai's most of the time, and then stuff like Death Cap and Gunblade to round out the build, but it's basically AP Kayle. The other is crit, so Trinity Force at first, Rapid Fire Cannon, and then Infinity Edge afterwards, so you're playing for your Sheen Burst and big crits basically. Trinity Force is actually working really well. It's a different playstyle, so you can go either build, but that's pretty cool I think, having like 2 distinctive different versions, AD and AP, that both work. The thing is, if you don't crush her early, and if you don't like absolutely screw her, then she will screw you you past 2 items and level 11. If that gets to level 16, the game is basically over, and that is why she's so good. We're going to move into our first mid laner now, and Katarina with Conqueror is nothing crazy new. Well, it is kind of like last patch, maybe becoming more popular now, but there's also a really cool build. Now, you don't have to go the cool build. Conqueror is really good on its own anyway, because when you full combo somebody, by the time you actually ultimate, like after your E, W, Q, and whatever, right, Conqueror is active, which means it does true damage and it heals you. A massive part about Conqueror as well, by the way, if you didn't realize, it says no healing reduction for AoE damage. Like Gunblade is 33% effective for AoE. So Conqueror will heal you based on all the damage that your ultimate does to everybody that it hits, which is absolutely nuts. Now, the cheeky build, though, is going Death Stance second item, and I know, really odd, but Gunblade into Death Stance with Conqueror means your ultimate heals you in 3 different ways, or well, like from 3 different things. In case you missed it, Death Stance was changed a little while ago to heal from all damage dealt, not just physical, which is obviously why this works now. Katarina also has AD ratios on her passive, her E, and her ultimate, so the AD from this is not wasted. It does actually boost your damage even more. It's used in about 12 to 13% of games right now, so it's about a third as popular as Morello, but it is winning a bit more. It's one of the highest win rate items when actually bought, so if you want to heal for a ton, even with an electrocute build as well, by the way, you don't have to go Conqueror. Give this a whirl. It's actually pretty good. So another buff that we had, which wasn't actually this patch, but like the one before that in 9.5, was to Skarner. He's really kicked into gear now, though, in 9.6. So the buffs were quality of life things, really. Like the spires aren't going to show on a minimap anymore where they're taken. They have a larger radius, and they now cover the Raptor and the Krug camps. So really, like, you farm better, you fight better while you're in them, and there's more chance that you will be in one of them when you do fight because they're bigger. So anyway, this is not Cinderhulk Skarner. That's actually got a pretty bad win rate, so don't go tank Skarner on this patch. It doesn't really work. This is like full damage Chad Skarner, really. Like Warrior, Trinity, Sterix are the way to go at the moment. They make you tanky-ish with some health, but they actually make you hit like a truck. If you haven't ever been battered by a Warrior Skarner before, then you're in for a real jaw drop the first time he hits you. Like, it honestly does way more than you're going to expect. It's really good, though. Like, it does kind of fit the meta. You've got your damage. You've got a bit of health as well. You're a brawler, kind of like a bruiser, but you've got the engage. Skarner at the moment loses a fair amount early game because obviously you've got no items yet, and he does scale really well with the AD. But once you start to fight people, like, it's perfect. Your ultimate is amazing to catch people, and yes, people can buy a QSS, but then they're going to have less gold into damage. It's taking up an item slot, and that's not really a bad thing. You basically do a ton of damage. You've got your usual Skarner things like really fast, your stun, your ultimate, and it's a pretty good pick at the moment. You can also try Shurelias, by the way, on him, which sounds really, really dumb because it's an AP support item, but it actually works. I've got a bit of a different one with this one. So Support Lux is not S tier. You've got to be a little bit careful, but if you like to carry the game yourself, she's a pretty good choice. There are 2 builds at the moment. Now, the first is probably what you're used to. Luden, similar to mid or whatever. You just build damage and end up blowing people up mid-game like a normal Lux. The reason we're looking at her more today, though, is because of the other build. Now, this is kind of cool. So it's a sensor, as in Ardent Sensor first item. Bit weird for Lux, but it applies with your W shield, so it kind of makes sense, right? But it's actually a very good build. So yes, it has the buff for your AD, but you're more like a shield and a damage pick with this. You're not just glass cannon. Sensor does have a good amount of AP on it as well, but you also go Athene's as your second item. Now, this has 30 AP, 40 with the passive from Sensor, but it also stores 35% of the damage that you deal. That is obviously quite a lot because you're a Lux, right? And you have some AP and stuff. So when you shield somebody, it consumes that sort of amount to heal them. With this setup, with the Sensor and your Athenes as well together, like, you normally max your shield second, which means you get a big shield that applies a Sensor buff and heals that person as well. It's actually really smart. You get the damage from Lux, you get the pick potential, the team-wide shield, and a ton of utility from her. This is also why I'm suggesting Aerie, which is a good choice for this setup as well. The poke is similar to Comet, but you will give your allies a bigger shield with it, which is kind of what you're playing for. Moving on to our next one, I don't really see Talia that much anymore at all. I can't really remember the last time. It's probably like as a support pick, honestly, but this is mid lane. It's actually really good in career and a massively underrated pick. Ever since the nerfs came through, people think she's really bad, but she was nerfed in the jungle, not as a champ. Well, actually, kind of she was nerfed as a champion, but not as much. She still has really good wave clear. She can push and control the mid lane and then roam to win other lanes like she could before. She has a stupid amount of burst damage if you can land your flip. Like, it can and probably will one-shot people, and that is how you get your lead. That means her early game is insane, mainly because of that. You can pick up some really good early kills from it without even really trying that hard. Late game, you've got good poke damage, good objective control with your ultimate, and the burst potential if anybody gets close. She's starting to slowly become more popular again now and has some really good matchups into stuff like Lissandra, Silas, LeBlanc as well, at least in Korean solo queue, so if you hate those, you probably want to try out Talia. Now, there was something that I noticed in Korea quite a lot, and I know some people do this here already, but if you max your W instead of your E on Janna, that wins 60% of games at the moment in Korea, which is insanely high. This build is Arcane Comet, it's Mana Flow, Celerity, Scorch, and then Taste of Blood and Relentless Hunter, so extra move speed and a lot of damage. The thing is, your W does 235 damage and 50% of your AP at rank 5, and at level 9 when you hit those numbers, a Vayne is going to have 1114 health base. That is pretty much 25% of a health bar instantly gone. If you take Ignite and you add that in afterwards as well, just like those two are half health really, and that is why it is so good. It's a way more aggressive build. You're playing a Poe champion here really. You want to win your lane with this setup, and it doesn't really harm your mid game that much. Kind of a little bit, I guess, with the shield value being a bit lower, but you can still apply your sensor with everything. You still have your redemption and stuff, so it honestly doesn't matter that much. Normally when you try this with other champions, it doesn't really work as much, but the thing is with Janna, you're still going to have your tornado disruption, you're still going to have your shield, you're still going to have your heal and stuff with your ultimate, so it's the same old Janna, just way more damage and way more aggressive. I honestly just thought this was kind of cool. W Max Comet Janna is probably, at least in Korea, like a top tier support pick at the moment that does way more damage than you think and doesn't really get that much attention. Alright, so those are a bunch of new picks in Korea from this patch that are doing much better so far during 9.6. I should be playing some of that Misfortune build on stream right now, so if you fancy it, come and see what the fuss is about. But thank you for watching. For now, I will leave you with the robots.